Hi there, Stephen Downs here. Have you ever wondered how I produce OLDaily, my daily newsletter? Well, this video is going to explain it, and I hope to keep it interesting, but sometimes it's not interesting. So I'm just going to dive right into it. In case you're wondering how I'm doing this bit, I'm live streaming on YouTube. That means people could, in theory, be watching right now, but they're not. And I'm using OBS to actually manage the feed. And there's my setup in the second window there. Right, and then this is my main window that I'll be producing the newsletter on. So that's that secret given away. Let's just adjust this camera here. That's not much of a secret, is it? All right, so let's go to the newsletter. I'm a bit self-conscious because I'm getting older, and I notice my voice is slowing down and maybe even becoming a bit less clear as I age. So I hope you'll forgive me for having a slow voice, an old voice. It's one of the hazards. It'll happen to everyone, hopefully. Anyhow, it's just I heard myself on video the other day. Oh man, I sounded bad. I sounded like an old man reading something and mispronouncing words. Terrible, terrible. All right. So, okay, let's get her going then. So let's set up the right screen and camera here. So this is my main working screen. That's a photo I took a little while back. I like to use my own photos on my backgrounds because I like my own photos. All right, so I'll open up Firefox. I do most of my work straight out of Firefox. I don't use Chrome. There's a variety of reasons why I don't use Chrome, but mostly the interface in Firefox is just ever so slightly better. I do a lot of things like copying and pasting and such, and Firefox is a bit easier to do that in. Also, in Firefox, I use uBlock Origin. Let's just make sure that's turned on. Because I turned it off in the office yesterday when I was testing something. Looks like it's turned on. Oh, that's okay. So anyhow, all right. So where do I get my sources? Well, first of all, this is a little home screen I made for myself. Let me just move it over here. This is pure HTML, nothing more. This is all of my sites that I regularly go to. You can access this page. There's nothing secret about it. It's at downs.ca/start.html, and you could easily make one for yourself. Just put in your own links instead. If you want me to make one for you, we can negotiate a price depending on how many links you want. Just kidding. But I would. Okay. So various things, email, news feeds. I don't use a whole lot for OLDaily. Mostly the social internet, baseball, hockey, of course, and football, of course not. This is for all of my work and not just for OLDaily. So I like to start with Mastodon. Mastodon is my social network of choice. Replaces Twitter, obviously. So I follow a bunch of people. This is my account here. So I'm following 135 people on Mastodon. That's actually kind of low for me for following, but I find I have to maintain this list, right? I want a balance between content and chattiness. I want to feel like I'm part of a community without being overwhelmed. Dunbar's number is 150. That's the number of people that you can kind of handle without losing track of who's who. So I'm a little bit under that because I'm old. So I'll typically just scroll down through. So I use the deck version, so I have the home feed, which is the people that I follow, notifications, people who have linked to me, and then this side here is if I click on anything in particular, I'll get this, and this is useful because I'll get the whole thread. Now I've clicked on an OL Daily post here, and there's never any thread for those, but that's the way it goes. So I'll scroll down here. So here's an item from the transmitter, for example, one of the things that I follow. And I'll look at this and I'll evaluate, okay, synaptic anomalies in autistic people support whatever. Okay, so I'll take a quick look at it. Okay, I always accept all of the cookies because I'm not afraid of cookies. There's nothing to be afraid of about cookies. I really don't get it. All right, so what it's saying is increased excitatory and decreased inhibitory synapses in the prefrontal cortex of autistic people suggest broader impacts on brain function and connectivity. Okay, so it's a pretty narrow article, right? And I consider it. I'm rejecting this one because synaptic differences in brain areas are involved in cognitive functions. Okay, kind of knew that. Not something I haven't covered before. I don't really focus on autism or anything like that, so it's a little outside my area. I do like covering brain-related stuff, but this is just a little bit too narrow here. I'm just going to adjust this so it's easier for you to see. So, going to pass on that. Let's see, continue down. Science News, I just followed them today. They followed me, and so I had a look at their site. That happens sometimes. And Science News probably isn't going to produce a whole lot of OL Daily coverage because it's more science generally. If it came up, I'd probably look for things like building scientific community, scientific networking and interaction, how knowledge is built by a community, stuff like that. Splitting Germany into several price zones? Not really. No, it's not. OL Daily. I don't know why I'm getting things from Zoom right now. I must have a window from Zoom open and it's giving me notifications. And I'm getting something from Sam Sheltane. Why? I don't know. Generally, I leave notifications turned off. I don't like notifications. Let's just check and let's check the windows here. Yeah, I keep a lot of tabs open. There we go, Zoom. We'll just close that off and maybe that'll shut off those notifications. Okay, here's Ben asking a question. Another Science News. Jim Groom, who's really hit or miss. Creepshow Diorama, Lights, Camera, Scent. Yeah, not really an OL Daily thing. Okay, this is one I actually did. I've already done the post, so you can't see me do the post for this. Focus group research on Pointer and the University of Minnesota. It's actually a focus group of 26 people, so that's a bit dicey for research, right? How do you distinguish between a focus group of 26 people and an opinion column with 26 authors? One is research, the other is opinion. It's dicey, but I went with it anyways because. Well, because it reflects something that I said earlier. That happens sometimes. Oh, I also noticed when I was watching myself, I sometimes snort when I laugh. I'm sorry about that. I'm feeling very self-conscious today. Anyhow, I wrote this because I was looking at Checkpoint. Oh, I should come back to that. And so I wrote that the latest challenge for me in producing my daily newsletter is to distinguish between AI and human written stories. Quite true. So I had just written that, and then I see this item from Pointer on AI written news. So I see the opportunity to tie together my comment and this story, and that's exactly what I do. Let's go back to this Checkpoint thing here. Yeah. So where did it go here? Here it is. So yeah. Now, the checkpoint thing I got in my email, we'll come back to that in a bit. But this is the web version of it. And because I have a number of email subscriptions that I also follow. So sometimes they never produce stories in the OLDaily, sometimes they do. So this one, there's a couple of things, right? So I got these stories in my new email newsletter from Checkpoint. So I had a look at this one because I like stories about trends and tech trends. And so I'm reading through this, and okay, it's okay. It's not great, but it's okay. So ultimately, I rejected this because it says here to get full insight into the study, readers are encouraged to contact this guy. I'm not into that. Um, if you're going to talk about a study, link to the study. Because what I want to do is read the original study, and that's what I would normally do. Right? A story like this that summarizes a study, I'd follow the link to the study, I'd read the study, and then when I create a link in the OLDaily, I'd link to this article and the actual study. You're not going to give me the actual study, I'm not going to link to the story. That's a real simple one. But also what bothered me, it says here, the study further identified the top 5 most sought degrees. Okay, so, and I thought my mind was playing tricks on me. It sometimes does, right? I'm mild dyslexic at the best of times, so I don't always read as well as I would like to, but I'm counting 4 here, and things like that bother me. If you introduce 5 and you give me 4, it took me a few seconds to come back to no, wait, no. So that's another reason. Now I'm really bothered. I went to another story here in Checkpoint. I went to this story, and now I'm kind of suspicious about Checkpoint, and now I'm reading this, and boy, the benefits of, and now I get a list. The practical applications, and now I get a list. Here's what it means for the future, and now I get a list. You know what this looks like? An article written by ChatGPT. This is what I would get if I put in a question to ChatGPT. So now I'm sitting here wondering, right, well, it's just a listicle, and it's not really saying anything new anyways, so I'm not going to link to it. But I'm also bothered by the fact that it might be an AI written article, so I reject all of that. I'll stay subscribed to Checkpoint. Maybe they'll link to a study at some point in the future, in which case I might have something interesting. So I keep scrolling down. Now this is stuff, this is how far I got today, and then I decided, hey, I should do this video. I don't know why. Well, I do know why. It's because I was talking about how I produce OLDaily, and then I thought, well, people have never seen me produce OLDaily. They just get, dribs and drabs of how I do it, and I'd like to post these, how I do things. So, okay. So, I'll just keep scrolling down. Okay, this is the thing. Okay, now the new stuff. Aromatic, another one from Science News. A ring made up solely of metal atoms. Okay. Response to Daily Create. Doug Belshaw on UK politics. I like to read Doug's on UK politics. UK politics have been interesting for a long time now. We also have, he tore his running shoes. I hate chat help systems on websites, just saying. I got to agree. I mean, there's no link or anything to follow, but I got to agree. Okay, no such thing as a fish podcast. Really? Oh no, that's the name of the podcast. Oh, I see. No such thing as a fish is the name of the podcast. Okay. Eco egg, laundry egg instead of, okay, I don't need that. Herpes therapies. Boy, there's a lot of science news here. Maybe I'm not sort of regretting my. I'm still getting notifications from Zoom. Why? Why? I've closed the page. Do I have another page open? No. Ah, go away. My life in pictures. Pretty sure I don't have any more open. Nope. Okay. Okay, the badge. He's updated the glossary page on the badge wiki. Okay, interesting, but and so I look at something like that and I ask myself, okay, how often have I covered Bill Shaw and badges? Well, a fair amount over the years. Do I need another post on that linking to an older resource? No. Wow, these are getting really annoying. Do I have Zoom running? No. Okay, I'm just going to Task Manager. See if it's running as a background process. This is annoying. I do a lot to turn off stuff like that. Yeah, look at this. Okay, zoom. Alright, so what we'll do is we'll kill these if we can. Why isn't it responding? It's not responding. There we go. There we go. End task. There, that gets rid of them, and hopefully that'll get rid of the notifications. This is all the stuff that runs on my computer at any given time. All right, there's tons of interesting stuff, and people, if you're wondering how I got that, I hit Control-Alt-Delete. And then I selected Task Manager, and you can see exactly what's running on your computer. I use Windows. And I know I should be a purist and use Linux, but for many reasons I prefer Windows. Not the least of which is having a nice easy access to a task manager like that. Okay. Now I just linked to them the other day. And, okay, how do you... Okay, what is the value of National Research and Education Networks? Heidi Fraser-Krauss, CEO of JISC, shares her insights in her latest blog. Now, this is a bugbear with me. It's not her latest blog. It's her latest blog post. A blog is a series of blog posts. Yeah. Just terminology, right? I sometimes comment when I'm talking about how people learn a discipline and how you tell whether a person is, knows or doesn't know the discipline that you're talking about. And it's one aspect of this is they use the terminology correctly, right? So people who know about the internet, know about blogging and social media, use blogging terminology correctly. So they know that a blog is a series of posts, so they would never say the latest blog. Somebody who's saying the latest blog is somebody who's relying on all of this by way of second-hand knowledge. And they might be knowledgeable in other areas, but they're not knowledgeable about social media, and that's what this kind of language tells me. And, it's a little thing, but it all goes into the mill, right? When I'm evaluating, do I rely on this person? Do I trust this person? CEO of JISC, opinion is going to be worth looking at the very least, so I'm going to follow that up. Thankfully, they've given me a link. Here's the article. What did NRENs ever do for us? The answer might surprise you. Oh, so clickbaity. Should be ashamed of yourself. Okay. But I'm interested in the topic. Okay, so they're referring to Janet. I've covered Janet previously on OL Daily. Can be looked up. So, the rise of online and blended learning means UK universities and colleges must deliver a seamless digital experience for users with no loss of connectivity. Sure. Um, Sharing vast amounts of data. What is needed is a dedicated common resource. Okay. I'd say a dedicated common resource network, or just a common resource network. Why does it have to be dedicated to this specific purpose? Anyhow, that's what Janet does. Okay. What exactly is an NREN? Okay. It's a secure, resilient, high-speed network infrastructure that connects universities, colleges, and research institutions. So what that tells me, that's useful for universities, colleges, research institutions. What you know what it doesn't connect? Anyone who's not in universities, colleges, and research institutions. That kind of thing always bothers me. But yeah, but it's pretty common. It's you know. There's lots of services like that available only to the university and research community, and not to the rest of the world. And you know, this is one of these disparities that's never talked about. But I see it every day in this work. Okay, what makes Janet so special? Unlike, okay, we deliver a range of services over the Janet network to support education, etc. Okay, fine. I don't know if that makes them special. I guess, unlike the majority of NREN providers, they do this. I argued in the past, and the time's long since passed, that NRC should be doing something similar. That there was a need in Canada for institutions, and especially small institutions, to be able to access online servicing. Now, back when I was arguing, I was saying things like, they should be able to access discussion board software, mailing list software, stuff that they might not be able to support in-house, but they should be able to use these services. Nothing ever came of that, but it's out of that sort of initiative that something like Janet grows. Okay. Okay, now here's the main thing that they're trying to do. We'll be showcasing all of this and more at TNC 2025 in Brighton next June. Okay, so she was specifically asked, I'll bet you, to write this article as a bit of a promotion for this conference. There's a ton of stuff out there for conferences. So, this one's right on the line. Do I cover this or not? It's good background, right? It's been a little while since I mentioned Janet. I did mention NRENs the other day, so it's sort of on topic with a recent theme. The author is credible, so I think I will cover it. So, what am I going to do now? I've written. Okay, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a post. So, how do I create the post? My post making application is called Grasshopper. Here it is. And this is the tool that I use to make OL Daily. And so you can see here, I'll list the posts. These are the posts that I've created. Here's the one from Pointer. Here's all the information, right? Here's the uploaded image. Here's a preview of it. I can even analyze it. I use it for other things. Right, the analysis, I'm not sure if that's working. So, it's linked to banned sites. That's kind of weird. I'll show the graph. I can actually, okay. This is not working at the moment. So, I when it was working, I could associate it with companies, topics, products, etc. And you see all of these here. Well, you don't see all of these here because I've removed them from this list. They still exist in the database. All right, you might be thinking right now, what a crappy piece of software. No, this is a great piece of software that I'm the only one in the world who uses, and I wrote it for me. And sometimes when I mess around with it, some things are not working for a while. There's dozens and dozens of I've tried something to make something work, and the effects still linger in the code. Doesn't matter because it's not a commercial product. I call it my online research laboratory. Right? Other people have a lab with beakers and Bunsen burners and all of that. I have Grasshopper. This is where I do my stuff. Okay, so let's come back to this article. So, what I've done, one of these experiments that works pretty well is I've written a bookmarklet called GHub. And let's go into it here. Bookmarks, manage bookmarks. Where is it? It's in the bookmarks toolbar. All right. So this is it right here. Control C. I'll just show you. I'll open it up in Note tab. You've never heard of Note tab. It's my little text editor of choice. So here it is. It's just a little JavaScript function, and all it does is it opens up a little window a little Grasshopper window, and with some commands, edit, post, etc. And what it's going to do is tell Grasshopper to create a new post with this particular web page. So let's watch this in action now. I suppose I could have led with the demo, but whatever. Okay, so it pops up. Now what's happening behind the scenes, Grasshopper went out, got the site, and retrieved some information. This information comes from metadata in the file. If we look at the page source here, I know that's a mess. We'll scroll down here through. This is all styling. Way too much styling for a simple web page. And whatever. Wow. Okay. And that's the actual text. So the metadata must be at the top, somewhere in here. Yeah, okay, it's all in here, I think. Yeah, here we go. It's all right at the very top, right? Meta property, Twitter, image, alt, so there's an image associated with it. Content, here's the URL, here's name, next head count. So, metadata, right? So, GHub, which is what I call it, reads all of that metadata off the page and fills in the major things. Most, like 90% of these pages, don't identify the author in the metadata. How annoying. So I have to do that. Control C to copy it, and I'll put it in here, and I'll update. Okay. So, the difference between these two items and these two items is author and feed are their own separate entries in the data, in my database. So if we go into it here, for example, let's come in here. We can't, okay, let's look at a post, list post. Right, here's the one I just created. Come back to this one. So here's Jennifer Orsi. So I can edit Jennifer Orsi. I see that she's actually had a couple of posts. Here's the other post. Oh, I need to fix the title on this. right? So, and this is the post that that she just did. I don't like having that in the headline because it's down here. I don't want it twice. It's just a stylistic thing. All right. Similarly, Pointer. I've referenced Pointer quite a bit over the years. And so, and this is the most recent. Yeah, here it is. This is the most recent. So it's a relational database. And there are, like I say, there's topics in it, there's companies, there's products, and they're all related. And a lot of this is done automatically by the Grasshopper software. I don't use most of that, but I do use it, you know, to create author pages or feed pages that allow people to see, you know, of, you know, for this particular author, here's the stuff that I've covered. How many authors do I have? Well, again, it's not showing up here, but I can make it show up here. I just have a function that determines whether or not I want to be able to view the table here. There's actually about 20 or so different tables. There's thousands and thousands of different authors that I've listed over the years. There's a whole bunch of thinking behind that, right? Authors change their names, authors use nicknames, etc., etc. I've still never reconciled authors, their home pages, or their social networks. I'd love to do that one day. That's the sort of thing AI would help me with, right? I have an author, Heidi Fraser Krause. I'd like to have a proper profile page for this author. Not just the list of items that I've covered, but and not just the list of feeds that she's written for, which I assume is just blog, but the topics that she's written on, her social network information, like, you know, does she have a LinkedIn account, etc. Anyhow, all of that's in the back of my mind. This Grasshopper will be forever unfinished. Now, what I have to do myself is actually write the description. Now, when I use GHub, if I highlight some text, I can actually transfer it, but in this case, I haven't done that. So, I'm going to copy that. This article, briefly, because it's short, outlines the UK's, and why do I use the name of the country there? Because country is one of my fields, and if I wanted, I could do a search and find everything I've ever written about the UK over, I don't know, 30,000 or whatever posts. Now, I'll just post that. I'm doing this because it's an easy way to get the link in without messing around with stuff. I like putting links in my posts. Again, I'm thinking future analysis, right? If I put links in my posts, I'm building another layer of connectivity from one item to another to another. Outlines what the UK's Janet Network does and provides an overview of, now what does NREN stand for? National Research and Education Networks, NREN, focusing in particular on Britain's All right, that's a one line. I'll tell readers what's in this. Okay, most readers probably won't need to read beyond that. They already know about this stuff. They've been reading OLDaily for a while. A new reader, this is new to them, right? So now let's try to pull a quote here. Here we go. It's an NREN. And now, okay, so I put a quote in. This is a good quote. Tells me what an NREN is and tells me why it's important. 140 countries use it. Now I'll put in some opinion. I like the idea of NREN. And network infrastructure, network research infrastructure is essential today. But I'd like to see them more open so that everyone, not just universities and research organizations, can have access. That's the comment I made earlier. Right? And that's where those comments come from, right? Are these things in the back of my mind that I've thought about over time. All right. Not done yet. Let's check the spelling. You have to look at the source to check the spelling. Okay, I've misspelled essential with 3 S's. Research, I always misspell this. Always. NREN, I'll just add that to the dictionary. No more red marks. Okay, we're probably good. Now I need an image. Okay, normally, if there's an image associated with the article, GHub finds it, but didn't in this case. But there is an image. Save the image. I don't want it there. Save it. Save image as images. There we go. And now we'll upload that image. Now, we're uploading the image only for the process of creating thumbnails of that image. And I'm going to create 2 thumbnails. Here's one of the thumbnails. And then if I were to go to this post, let's open this in a new tab. Here's the post that got created. Here's the second thumbnail, right? And you'll notice it's only a small version of the image. You can view a full-sized version of the image. I stash a copy on Amazon. When I use images, here's how this works, because it's a question, right? If I'm writing a post and the image comes from the post is the reference for the image, right? And my reasoning here is that it's fair use, or in Canada, fair dealing. This is a commentary for academic and research purposes. I make $0 off of this, and the image is part of me summarizing the article. Sometimes I'll use images from a third party. When I do that, I always include the link in my post. And then I'll say image from such and such, and then the link to the post itself. And again, I'm adding that image as a bit of context to the post that I'm using. And so again, the image is being used for commentary and academic purposes. Perfectly legal. I have over 20 years, 25 years, never received an image complaint. Now let me check, is that true? Yes, it is true. I have received image complaints, but never with respect to OLDaily. If I did, I am using it legally, but I would probably, and I've received less than a handful of these kinds of requests over the years, I like to be considerate of the people I'm covering, so I would probably remove the image. Similarly, if I've made an error in the text, I'd write a correction. In one case, I've removed a whole post because the post was being used by political opponents of the person I was writing about to attack that person, and that's not what these posts are for. Don't feel I had to remove it, but I feel it was due consideration. I try to be considerate as much as possible while still doing the job, right? So there's the preview. Whoops, this is a bug. So come back here. Here's the preview. Oh, you silly thing. I don't know why it's doing that. I mean, we just looked at a preview a few moments ago. Normally I can preview. Right? Here's none of them are previewing. I wonder why. Huh, that's weird. I am logged in because otherwise I wouldn't be able to upload this data. So I don't know what's going on here. Maybe I didn't publish this. No, I did publish this. Anyway, that's the last step, is to publish it. So I'll go here. So what can NRENs ever do for us? I'll come over here. I'll publish it. I publish first to Mastodon, then to the web. That's because I used to get more display and it would cover up. Anyways, it's just easier to do it that way. So now I've published it to Mastodon, and if we go to Mastodon, oh, right. This came via Gayant. Here's the link to Gayant. Let's copy that. And let's come back in here. Edit. I'm frequently forgetting. Via G-E-A-N-T. I'm spelling that. Let's get this right. Control-C. Oops. Normally I just move this down a bit, and that way I can just click on the bottom of it here and bring it up via Gayant. Oh. Shift Control V puts in just the text. This is one of the little secrets you'll learn. Alright, and let's come back, and I don't want the deck version of the article, so I'll remove the word deck. And so there's the post. I'll copy the link to the post. And oops, that's not it. There we go. See, I'll just click on it. It's back up. Okay, out. And add that link, and that way I've added the attribution. Again, I like to add the attribution. First of all, to give them credit, because that's where I found it. And secondly, it still builds the connectivity, right? And this creates a connection between Gayant and Jisk and Janet and all of that. So that's all useful stuff. See, here's the way to think about this. Because all of this sort of stuff, if you had an AI doing an analysis, right, it would be doing all of this sort of stuff. It would be looking at where this came from, making sure, looking up Janet Network, etc., associating authors with topics, even associating images with topics. That's what happens when you train an AI. And what I've been doing with OLDaily is I am basically creating a similar sort of set of connections between things in my database. And have I found good uses for it? No. But every time I do that in the database with this system, I'm also doing it in my head. And have I found good uses for that? Oh yeah, absolutely. This is the difference between reading about a field and understanding a field. And this is to me anyways, my advantage, right? I know about these relationships. I know how all of these things interact with each other. How you change the nature of NRENs, you've changed the nature of JISC, right? You've changed Heidi Fraser Krause's job somehow, right? All of this is in the back of my mind as I'm considering any topic of interest in the field. Okay, where was I? So I've got that. All right, I'm publishing it. So I've published it. So let's have a look here. We'll go back to the deck. And there's the OL Daily post. And the post actually pulls up the image so it can be shown here. And there's the headline. So in Mastodon, when you click, you get the post. When you click on the post, it takes you straight to the article. That's really important. Now, you notice it's a redirect. When you click on this, I count the fact that you clicked on it. And so every post has a counter. So I know how many people clicked on it. Do I ever look at that? No. I used to for when I was doing the Downs Prize. I used to. But I haven't. So that number isn't 100% accurate because it reflects the number of times I hit the post while I was creating the post. But then after this base number, it's going to be pretty accurate. Direct link, people might not want to be counted. Fair enough. I provide a direct link that takes you here, but doesn't count your click. I also have the share, and this is something from Ben Werdmuller that I stole. And now you can share this. So just click on that. There's the post, write your comment. Demonstrating the share button, post. Okay, and let's come back to Mastodon. There's me demonstrating the share button. Nice link the picture again too. To make this work in your post, you actually have to declare the image, the title, etc. That's why you see sometimes if there isn't an image, it wasn't declared properly. I don't know why there isn't an image on this. Oh, just because it's a favorite. Okay. Right. And then after I've posted it or published it to, did I close that? Oh, I did. Oh well. Let's go back to, let's close this, go back to Grasshopper. And we have to publish this on the web as well, otherwise it won't enter the newsletter. Now can I preview it? No. Yeah. This is more stringent than I'm used to. I don't know why. Let's make sure I've published this one as well. Yes. So, okay. Mastodon. I did this by accident. Let's just delete this post. I've been working on a little project involving Mastodon, and I must have created that by accident yesterday. Here's ChatGPT. Let's see if I can preview this. Nope, none of that's working. Normally I get a little, well, you saw the little preview. I don't know why it's not working right now. Huh. Oh well. It's something to do with an expired session or something. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. Well, it does kind of matter. Let's reload the entire page. Here we go. List post. Preview. There we go. Yeah, just, it was a session issue. This is supposed to be for messages that come up when I do something on the post, but right now it's just blank. It doesn't do anything. All right. So that's a lot of chatter. Normally, it doesn't take me near as long as you've just seen for me to produce a post. So let's go back. We'll go back to Mastodon. Well, and I would go back to Mastodon and keep going, but actually, let's excuse me. Now, on another server, for no particular reason, I have a cloud run environment. I used to use Feedly for my RSS feeds. Now I just use this one, Fresh RSS. Zero artificial intelligence in it. It's not the world's greatest RSS reader, but it does the job, and it does it cleanly and nicely, and that's what I like. So here's what I subscribe to in RSS. These are all the different sources. As you can see, some of them, like, oh no, that's still going. Here we go. CJLT hasn't responded to pings for 6 months. First Monday hasn't responded to pings. That's weird. I guess that explains why I haven't been seeing them. I'll have to check that. So these are all the different RSS feeds that I follow. That's why I was using Feedly's RSS AI. It was called Leo. To pick the stuff that I thought I was interested in. And I trained Leo quite a bit. I spent quite a long time training Leo, but it just got bland. So this is harder. This is everything. And there's a lot of garbage in here, but I like the variety. So I'll just go through it now. And this is what I do. I just go through this, right? So children and adolescents may be motivated to rectify gender and ethnicity biases in the classroom. Okay. So it's classroom research. It's not really educational technology. Yeah, I know. Bias, gender bias, racism, etc. are important issues. I cover educational technology. There's some overlap, sure. And where there's overlap, I'll cover it. Here, no overlap. This isn't an ed tech story or an online learning story. This one is which adolescents are at risk of depression. I love the way they phrase this, right? Which adolescents are at risk of depression following early social media use? Right? So that question presupposes that adolescents, it presupposes this: adolescents are at risk of depression following early social media use. Now, I think that question is so very much up in the air. This one just assumes that it's solved, and now it's going to focus on which. Okay. Findings published in the Journal of Adolescence. They surveyed 488 adolescents. Social. Okay, here we go. This is what they call the nut graph. Typically, in news writing, you'd write the lead, which is the summary of the story, and then the nut graph follows it and tells you the core of the story. Right? It's more than just the lead. It's going to put it into context, identify the importance. People don't put it in the right place. Mostly people bury it. They bury the lead, they bury the nut graph. This is the nut graph. That's why you have to read the whole article. Often the last sentence is the nut graph, because people learn to write as academics. And you have your introduction, your sentences, and your conclusion. Your conclusion goes at the bottom, right? The conclusion always goes at the bottom. Not in good writing. In good writing, the conclusion is right at the top, and then the rest of the article supports the conclusion. Here, okay. Social media use was related to increased depression for adolescents with greater parental hostility, peer bullying, anxiety, reactivity to stressors, and lower parental media monitoring. And with other characteristics less. Okay, that's pretty important paragraph. How much do I trust that science finding? Let's follow this up. Okay. Kind of squiffy about education research report, but it's generally okay, and generally will give me a link to the study. That's what I like. Now, am I going to get to read the study? Read full text? No. Sorry, folks. We have a loser. Our friend Jonathan, whatever his name is, linked to a paywalled study. I don't link to paywalled studies. Why? Because they're paywalled studies. Look at this. PDF for download and access, $42. Who can afford that? Oh yeah, everyone can afford one. Or not even everyone, right? But, imagine reading 10 of these a day. That's not extreme for a researcher. Well, now you're looking at a $420 daily expense. Sure, you can access through your institution, and my institution will allow me to access these things. But what about the people who can't access through their institution? What are they going to do? They're stuck. They can't read this. So, as far as I'm concerned, this study doesn't exist, right? And I start asking questions. Well, why are they hiding this behind a paywall, right? So, and now sort of like surveyed once a year for 8 years, beginning in 2010. But I guess there was some social media in 2010. It's interesting. It would probably make the list if I could read the study and verify that the study actually reported something worth reporting rather than secondhand report. But paywall, not going to happen. Not going to do it. Not going to cover it. Next. Community color supports fund. Stochastic Parents Extended. Mark Lieberman writes Language Log and gives me a lot of offbeat kind of stuff. It's related almost exclusively to language. Now, of course, language has suddenly become a big thing. This is interesting. Large language models are biased because they are large language models. I love that. A nurse is likely to wear a dress on a formal occasion. A nurse is, contingently true. Right. Crucially, LLMs, as they are currently constituted and trained, have no basis for distinguishing among these three distinct statements about nurses. And we come back here, right? The first is about the meaning of the word. Second is contingently true. The third is contingently true in the same sense. However, it would be normatively unacceptable in many contexts to use this statistical fact because, dresses, women, assuming all nurses are women, etc. So, yeah, good kind of point. Let's have a look at Phil's study. Okay, it's in archive, which means we can read it. This paper's under review. Okay, we get the scorpion story. Bias is a direct consequence of the design. Is such a direct consequence that it cannot be avoided. See, now that's a different statement. And a more interesting statement. Because, I mean, now I ask the question, could a large learning model eventually learn to distinguish these three types of statements? And to me, that takes us to the more general sentence, could a neural network distinguish between these sorts of statements? And that's the general question. Can a neural network distinguish through the language alone between a statement defining or describing the meaning of a word and a statement expressing a contingent fact about whatever is described by the word? Can it distinguish between use and mention? Or, can it distinguish between meta statements about language and statements within language? There's different ways of phrasing that question. And when I look at this, I see this as a variation on the problem of whether neural networks are able to reconstitute logical and linguistic structures without being trained. We go back to the history of neural networks, right? And some of the work that was done with neural networks was to expose them to examples of gameplay in chess and in Go without explaining the rules to them. And these neural networks were eventually able to infer the rules for themselves and use those rules to win those games of chess and Go, and do it better than any human. Can they do the same thing with language? Is what this particular study asks us. Now, all of this is going through my head as I look at this study. And I think they can, and there's a variety of reasons why I think they can. We've seen neural networks derive logical structures in other areas like chess and Go. I could look up and see how they're doing currently at things like propositional logic or mathematics. Certainly the neural networks that we're looking at now that are produced by OpenAI, not so good at this. I agree, they're not so good at this. But that's not the question, right? The question isn't whether or not they're good at this. We know they're not. The question is whether they are not good at this inherently because they are neural networks. Different question. Important question. So I'm going to cover this item. And I just want to figure out how to talk about it. So we'll go back. Oops, not too far back. Stochastic parrots extended. Okay. Yeah. This extends ideas implicit in can language models be too big? Okay. All right. That's yeah. So I don't think it extends those ideas particularly, but there's a relation. I see the relation because this is the beauty of reading somebody like Mark Lieberman. He's a smart guy. He's been doing this a long time. When he sees an article like this, he's doing exactly the same thing I am, which I've just demonstrated that I do, and going through all this knowledge in the back of his head and relating it to what he thinks it's related to. Anyhow, good stuff. I'm going to link to it. I could spend all day working on this particular paper, but I can't. So I'll do what I can. So I'll GHub it. And so the most important thing, Mark Lieberman links to and discusses briefly paper from. Alright, now I'll just save myself a little typing time. Control C. Now, see, this is the beauty, right? If I do Control Shift V, I just get the plain text. Control Z to remove what I just did. Or if I do just Control V, I get the link with it. So that's what I'm Forensic called. So this just saves me a little typing. I remove the quotes because it's already in a link. Which suggests that large language models and standard journalistic practice, right? The first time you use a term, you don't just jump in with the abbreviation, you spell it out, and if you think you might use it again, you put in the abbreviation after. Because a lot of people reading the article might not know what the abbreviation stands for. Okay, which suggests that large language models are unable to distinguish between statements about what a word means and statements about the thing a word refers to. That is between I don't want to say necessary truths, that's too strong. Descriptions of meaning. No, just descriptions of language. No, I don't want to say it like that. I want to make this clearer, not less clear. That is between that'll do. That is between facts about meaning and facts about the world. That makes it clearer. Because of this, Resnick argues, LLM. Now, this is an interesting point of usage. Okay, so I'm using this, right? Large language models. I could put LLMS. I don't like to do that. The abbreviation is LLM, right? So even though I'm using the plural here, I'm going to use the singular abbreviation. And for that reason, now, but you see, if I just use it like that, it would be unclear. So I'm going to say LLM with the little s to indicate I'm talking about them generally. So why do I do it that way? Because this is a standard practice, right? I always define my abbreviations this way, and in the back of my head, I have the idea that one day I'm going to write a script that goes through everything in OLDaily and produces a glossary of all of these abbreviated terms. Wouldn't that be something? And then I use all of these abbreviated terms again to show relationships between the different entities. Anyhow, because of this, Resnick argues LLMs are inherently biased in a way that can't be fixed. All right. So that's the summary of his argument in that paper, which I just quickly surveyed. Again, could spend all day. Now, the question I always ask is, did I get this right? Right? This is really important. Right? I want these to be accurate. I don't have time or inclination to study these papers in detail. So there's a risk, it's always a risk, that I might be wrong, right? But I'm pretty sure I'm not wrong. I'm pretty sure that's what this paper says, based on, and you notice I didn't even finish, right? And normally I would. Well, normally I would at the very least go to the conclusion. Okay, so post-conclusion discussion. So I want to get to the conclusion. Okay. The advances, Right. Success itself requires capturing the latent structure that exists behind the observed language. But they have no way of distinguishing between these patterns. So, again, confirmation that my interpretation is correct. So I think I'm good, right? I think I'm good. And I think I'm good. I know I'm good. And then the rest of, there's tons more detail in this paper. Well, a lot of it is stuff that I've already covered. A lot of this is stuff I know from the background of it. I want to get to, what's catchy about this paper. Not, yeah, it has a good background about it. Sometimes that's the main point of a paper. In this case, it isn't. So, my question, so now I can put in my opinion. My question is it true that, now, let's come back here. LLMs. Oops. I don't need the whole thing. Is it true that LLMs trained on purely distributional principles? In other words, LLMs that are LLMs. So I don't need that bit. Trained on purely distributional principles is a way of saying that it's statistical based, that is, it's neural network based, and not trained on pre-existing rules. It takes all the way back to Chomsky and the suggestion that you have to have pre-training, or innate or built-in rules. There's the whole argument. Anyhow, is it true that LLMs have no way to distinguish among distributional patterns that arise from definitions or meanings? I am going to read the whole quote. Versus normatively acceptable statistical generalization. Versus statistical generalizations, basically. So I'm eliminating the distinction between acceptable and unacceptable statistical generalizations. Just as an aside, he's reduced the question of bias and prejudice to the difference between acceptable and unacceptable statistical generalizations. No, that isn't it, right? if there were statistical generalizations that were relevant, then they wouldn't be instances of racism or prejudice. Right? It's the distinction between acceptable and unacceptable statistical generalizations is that the unacceptable ones have no causal bearing on the question at hand. That's what makes them prejudice. And he's skipping over that. But I can't cover all that in this post. I'd like to, but I can't. It's just not enough room. But I'm thinking it. I'm always thinking it. Okay. And the main question is, do they have no way to do that? That's not so clear to me. We know. I'll just say that's not so clear to me. And I've explained my reasons here, right? But if I start putting all those reasons into this post, now I'm making the post unclear. This is a good post, right? It's 7 lines long. Nobody's gonna not read it to the, well, I say no one's gonna not read it to this. More people will read it to the end than would if it was a lot longer. So, and it's interesting. It'll lead people to read this article. It's doing its job. I'm getting a lot more value out of this than a reader of OLDaily would, but that's unavoidable. I'll put in Lieberman's name, language log. Let's make sure I update both of these. Okay, now we need an image. Okay, let's see. Let's go back into the paper, see if there's an image in the paper. Sometimes there is, often there isn't. No. Let's see if there's an image in the stochastic parrots paper. I don't think there is. I'd like to. Oh, we'll get some charts. But they're 3 years old now. Nope. Alright, let's just find stochastic parrots. Images. And actually, if we come here, here's my image, Creative Commons. Now I have images I can use. This is a good one. This is one that was very likely created by AI. Created with Midjourney, no copyright on it. Florian Pesto. Now it's LinkedIn. It might not be 100% accessible to people, but it is accessible easily to people. Okay, so there's the image, upload, browse, parrot. So the image is upload, the thumbnails have been made, let's preview. Looks good, let's check the spelling. Just names and LLMs, so we're good. Let's publish it. And all right. Again, normally this all of this happens in a fraction of the time that it takes for me to explain it to you. But all that thinking that I did around that article, right? All of that happened right away. Um, you know, I mean literally right away. And then I spent the next 20 minutes explaining what happened. Um, that's how you see, and that's the benefit of having done all of this work for the last 20, 25, 30 years, right? Is that when I read an article like that, I don't need to run through a whole chain of reasoning for all of this to come to me. I just see it. And once I've seen it, I know what I can say and not say about this article. You know, and this is why, you know, I talk about knowledge of a domain as you know, and knowledge generally as recognition. This is what I mean. Right? What's coming out now, when I explain it to you, I have to explain it in sentences and words and in a logical structure. But when it comes into my head, it doesn't come in that form. It just comes as a whole set of neural activations. It's just, oh yeah, I get it. And then I'm able to write my description, make my comment, whatever. That's why doing these posts takes so much longer when I'm explaining what I'm doing than when I'm doing it. Doing this post normally might take 10, maybe 15 minutes. That's it. That's about it. All right, so where else do I look? Reddit isn't a good source for news. I do have a Blue Sky account, a Threads account. I have yet to find good stuff here. I really don't find good stuff on these, so I'm not even signed in. I use one password. See, and so I'll just autofill. Alright, so again, we plan to build several products on at Proto, front page being the first. Let's have a quick look at it. Front page. So, okay, so it's a headline list with, I guess, voting, right? Huh. Home post and shutting down a Proto's and environment. Yeah, okay. So that's Blue Sky. Threads is even less useful. Oh, I have to log in. I'm going to use an Instagram ID for Threads. I don't use Instagram at all, or Facebook at all, but I created an account so that I can look at Threads. He picked it up and tried keeping it. Yeah, so. Wow. Look at all these cards just. That's funny. So, yeah, garbage. I'll also look at LinkedIn. I don't look every day at LinkedIn because there's just so much self-promoting. It's my main source of stuff from Donald Clark, who posts on LinkedIn every day. Over, he means more than 9,000 people are signed up for today's free online conference on teaching and learning with AI. Must be nice to have connections. I could never get 9,000 people to join a conference. Never could. How do you do that? I'm just okay. He's the speaker at it. I've stopped getting keynote invitations now that I'm no longer on Twitter and Facebook. Steve Harganon. Okay, so there's a community out there. All right, so it's a whole session, a whole bunch of stuff. How to create an AI tutor for your course. Hope this doesn't reference yeah, Personify is now being closed for personal use. So so much for that idea. It's a good idea though. It was a good idea. And if it was not just a proposal, if it was like the whole paper or article or whatever, I'd probably link to it because it's a thing that people can do that people said you can't do. So Kepler Consulting. Okay, it's a Steve Harganon thing. Okay. He has spent years and years and years and years building up a community of teachers. It's mostly K-12 education in the U.S., and there's just massive numbers of people in that sector, far more than in any sector that I cover. And yeah, 20,000 members. And they get a lot of sponsorship and a lot of support. I'm not going to criticize them. They do good work. I think it's not research work. It's popularization work. It's teachers talking to teachers. There's not going to be this huge depth of knowledge here, but there's not none either. So, power to them. And I've thought about this a long time. What do I think of my competition in the space? And I love the competition in the space. I like seeing people get good careers out of this stuff. I like seeing people make money. I like seeing people able to form communities. I'm not worried about the competition because I don't see myself as in competition with them. If I depended on it for my livelihood, maybe I would, but I don't. Have a nice researcher job. It does occupy some of my time, I admit. And I'd rather be doing stuff like this. But competition? No. I would love the fact that people are doing this stuff. Free LinkedIn ads consultation. The habits of billionaires. Oh. Yeah. Who cares? Poor family. However, Jeff Bezos, without capital B here, wakes up early to have breakfast with his family and starts his day. Well, what does he do? Does his family have to wake up at 5 a.m.? Is he having 5 a.m. meetings with people? That's nonsense, unless he's meeting with people from Europe. I've had to do that. There's tons, I would say I think back to Audrey Waters a lot because she was just overwhelmed by this, and even like she's doing new stuff now, she's going to be overwhelmed by it in that sector too, maybe. There's just tons and tons and tons of promotional material on LinkedIn, and if all you follow is the LinkedIn stuff and the education press, all you're ever going to get is this promotional material, and it makes it feel like the whole sector is just pure self-promotion and product, and it's not. I mean, that's one segment of the sector. The bulk of the sector, I don't have it on there. Here we go. The bulk of the sector, right, is not that. Oh yeah, there's some. Here's the ad organizations. They promote themselves, right? The ad magazines. Like, these were Audrey's sources, right? These, much less so, right? The closest she came to these was Twitter. And that doesn't make up for it. It doesn't come close to making up for it. And so she was seeing this skewed perspective. I just mentioned Stephen Harganon's community with the 20,000 members. There's 20,000 people who are just interested in this stuff and probably working in their library or their classroom, just doing stuff, right? And they're not getting online and advertising themselves or anything like that. They're just doing the stuff. The same in the education technology community. Um, you know, uh, Chris Long is one example. I mean, I can this Blue Skunk blog, Go to Hellman, Lorcan Dempsey, Ben Wordmuller, Doug Belshaw, Ignatia, Inga DeWard, etc. Even Alfie Cohn, and hundreds and hundreds more are just doing the work. And those are the people that I'm interested in. Those are the people I like to follow. Those are the people I like to put in the newsletter. Problem is they're writing less and less these days because they're more and more, I guess, overwhelmed by the whole, the whole project of making a living and staying alive in a very challenging market. A very challenging environment. Let's be clear about that. So there's a lot of pressure forcing them off of their blog posts and into more limited structures, publishing and subscription paywall journals, for example. But there's a ton of people out there doing the work, and that's what I like. Mark Lieberman, not an ed tech promoter, but good stuff. Anyhow, is there anything else I want to cover about how I do my newsletter? I've shown you the bulk of it. I haven't shown you my email because it's my email. I don't want to share my email to the world on a video. But also I have a bunch of mailing lists that I follow in email, some communities, some newsletters, some Substack stuff. But basically I do the same thing, right? I review the headlines and then I ask myself a bunch of questions. Generally, I'll look at the headline, I'll read the item, or at least the first few paragraphs, depending on how it's been written, right? And then I'll just see, right? Okay, this is about such and such, and I'll just know this is new versus this is not new. This is a different take versus I've seen this take 80 times before. And most of the takes that I see, I've seen 80 times before. And that's how the newsletter gets made. You're all wondering, could a computer do it? I don't know. I mean, a computer can't be me, but that might be a good thing. Because, I come into this with biases. I come into this with a history. I'm largely self-taught in many areas, and I see the strengths and weaknesses of that. Especially when I write software, you can see, oh yeah, that's a self-taught guy, as opposed to that's a guy who learned how to do it the right way. There's a difference, right? My childhood experiences. I hated high school. My experiences in university. Questions about access, questions about funding. These things that matter to me, obviously in a way that they don't matter to a computer. People have actually written about that particular topic. And it's a good topic to write about. Could a computer be given those experiences? Yeah. You can create backgrounds for computers, artificial data sets. That's been done. How good are they? That's a question for debate. Could a computer do this job? Maybe. Should it? I'm not so sure. Uh, uh, you know, I think it could do a pretty good job. I mean, it depends on what you're reading OL Daily for, right? Um, if you're reading OL Daily just to learn the news of the day, yeah, the computer version's fine. If you're reading OL Daily because it gives you a daily dose of how my brain thinks about all of this stuff, then probably the computer newsletter isn't going to do the job for you. The question is, how many people actually really care how the brain of Stephen Downes looks at all this stuff? That's something I can never know. My immediate response is to say, well, it's probably not very many. Like I have 0 people watching this right now. No, that's not true. I actually have a viewer. No, let's take a look here. Yeah, I've had viewers come, viewers go. They don't stay very long. So probably not a lot of people are interested in that. But you know, I do what I do. Um, so mostly a computer could do the job. And, it's the old saying, if a computer could do the job, then maybe it should do the job, and the time spent paying people like me is probably spent on me doing more important things. I don't know what's more important in the stuff that I do. I consider OL Daily to be about the most important thing I do. Despite the fact that readership is down over the years, just simply because of the knowledge building exercise that it is. But who knows? Anyhow, I'm going to end it on that note. I hope you found that interesting. If nothing else, it's a look at how I build my newsletter. I'm going to classify this under Stephen Follows Instructions, even though it's not really a Stephen Follows Instructions video, but where else would I put it, right? And maybe you can get insight from it. Or maybe you think, this is so way too long. Oh well. Thanks for joining me, those of you who've joined me for this long. And I'll see you in OL Daily. Bye.